Okay, what we're going to look at today is some different types of government. Once we're done with this, you'll have a worksheet on your class stream and in your classwork that I want you just to answer the type of government for each definition on there. There'll be some on the bottom I'll have a word bank on the bottom of the page so you can figure out what to use. So the first one we're going to look at is called anarchy. People are like, well, anarchy is not a form of government. And it that's correct in a way, but anarchy is when you have an absence of government and you don't have a central or state operating a governing body. There's no utilities, there's no services, there's no control, laws, nothing of that nature. And I know some of you will be like, well, that'd be great. I could just do whatever I wanted to. It seems that way, but just think about if you're sitting at your favorite restaurant and somebody comes in, there's not a chair, and somebody just pushes you out of your chair and takes your chair. There's nothing that can be done to them because there's no rules or laws that said that they can't assault you or push you out of your chair or do things of that nature. And I mean, it could get more violent or more worse than that. You wouldn't go to school. There'd be no education. And it'd be a fall of our society. So while anarchy, I don't want to say sounds great, but it is inviting to some people that there are no rules. It really does have consequences that aren't very good. The next one we have is totalitarianism. Excuse me. This is an authoritarian form of government where the person that's in charge sees no limits on their powers. They can do whatever they want. They're the single most powerful person in that government. It doesn't necessarily have to be a dictator. It could be somebody that's in power. It could be a prime minister, a president, an ambassador, somebody in charge that feels like they can do whatever they want and they're above the law. And that's called a totalitarianism. The next one are two, really it's dictatorship is where a person rules with absolute power. There is not a democratic process. If they use a military to stay in power, it's called a military dictatorship. If they just rule with an iron fist and they have absolute power, it's just called a dictatorship. A little bit different than a dictatorship is a monarchy. They do have absolute power, but it's usually a king or a queen, and it's usually passed down from a bloodline, or they consider the divine rights of kings and queens, which means God has chosen them to do that. Some countries like Great Britain still have a monarch around, but it's called a constitutional monarch, which means that the king or queen is just basically a figurehead ruler, which means that they have a parliament, they have a executive branch, which is a prime minister, the parliament is their legislative branch, and they have their court system for the judicial branch. So they still have the three branches of government, but they keep the king and queen around, Queen Elizabeth in this case, to do ceremonial duties because she's so loved by her country. These next two have been in the news a lot. You've heard a lot of people talk about them. First one is communism. That's where people are the state owns public ownership of the economy, the infrastructure, the utilities, means of production. They want to get rid of all classes except the ruling class and the working class. And the ruling class decides what the working class gets. And everybody in the working class gets the same share, which sounds great on paper, just like socialism might sound great on paper. And socialism is where the people, not the government, that's the big difference in communism and socialism. The people own the means of production, and in communism, the central government does. But in socialism, sometimes they can adapt and have some type of free market in there with them. Sometimes there is capitalist, socialist that do have capitalism. The problem is a lot of it sounds great that everybody gets the same equal share. Everybody's given the same thing. But if somebody's getting up and going to work 8 hours a day and somebody's staying home watching Sports Center and those two people are given the same thing, the people that go to work 8 hours a day are not going to want to kill themselves just to get the same part. And that's why in a lot of countries socialism falls apart. But you can have socialist programs in a democracy or a republic. Social Security is a type of socialist in nature, taking care of people after they pay in and things of that nature. So you can have socialist concepts embedded into a federal government. We heard that socialism is terrible and bad. There are some decent ideas to it. It's just when it plays out, a lot of people don't have to work for their equal share, and that causes problems. Hopefully this will. Here we go. Theocracy. That is simply where the leader of a government is both the religious leader and the government leader. Oligarchy is where a few wealthy people run the government. Democracy is a form of government where people are given a direct role in choosing their leadership. Now, there are two different types of democracy. Direct democracy is what was used in ancient Greece, Rome, places of that nature, where all citizens of the city-state took part in the government. They were the ones that got together, made the laws, enforced the laws. Very hard to do in the United States with 260 million people as citizens. So what we have in the United States is we have where we elect people to make the laws for us, to enforce the laws. We elect senators, presidents. That just happened last Tuesday. We had the big general election. And then they go and they appoint the judges and they make the laws and they enforce the laws. We just got a couple that's left. The next one is federalism. Federalism is where the power of the government is divided between a central federal government and a local government and state government. That's what we have in the United States. We have federalism, okay? And yes, we're a democracy, but we also have federalism. And something else that we are that a lot of people don't talk about is we're also a republic. Not a Republican political party, but it's a Republican where the power is vested in their citizens. Okay? The power of our government is always vested in the citizens. You don't like a elected leader, you can vote them out. You can protest. You can do something about something that you don't like. You can raise money to, if the park is in shambles, you can raise money to do that. You can take it to the local government. You can work with the local government and get that fixed up. You elect state legislatures and a governor. You elect congressmen and congresswomen and a president. So a republic is where all the power is vested in you. The United States is a republic. It's a federal republic. That means that the power is separated between three levels of government: local, state, and federal. And it's also a democracy because we elect leaders and everybody has a voice. So those are the different types of government. Like I said, I will post a worksheet for you to fill in the questions and kind of match up the governments with what we talked about. And you got any questions, as always, just shoot me an email or post something in Google Classroom. Hope you have a great weekend. Thanks.